she didn't get to know of, in the course of doing the work as a church worker. 7 million Nigerians suffer stress and depression. This according to an expert. That's on page 32. And malnutrition kills 160 Zamfara kids. It's on page 16. JAMB cut-off marks. We won't be deterred. That's according to Loyoday's registrar of JAMB. That's on page 5 in greater detail. Lead story says, more trouble for Desiani and fresh £18 million property uncovered. Now, also there on the front page, that's the story. It says, transmission station, Radio Benue, flooded. This was after a downpour in Makurdi yesterday. Of course, Makurdi parts of Makurdi came under flooding as a result of that. We have other headlines there at the foot of the front page. Sarap to Buhari, stop military social media censorship. Stop military social media censorship. And then, of course, the story there also involving Wike and his vow.
All right, let's quickly take a look at the Daily Trust front page. And 74% of applicants don't get university admission. That's the lead story, and you can see the graphic, of course, distribution of the number of institutions, total applicants, and of course the applications and admissions from 2010 to 2015. Now, all other stories have been taken, but let me quickly look at the authority. AGF's motion threatens FG, IPOR peace deal. Don't use force on agitators, so Kukbe urges Buhari. And, okay, I think we've taken all other stories on the front page of the authority. Bayo, quickly, we have less than 2 minutes.
Yes, the story of note is two leaders of Boko Haram commanders have apparently surrendered. One is named Awalu Ismaila, and he said he is cooperating with the Nigerian military about how to terminate the adventures of the insurgent group. The other one is also Abdul Qadir Abubakar. He was arrested in June, and he alleges that the Boko Haram group have two factions, and Shekau group is the most vicious of them. And he has said that Shekau, for now, has left Sambisa forest, and he now lives in Mandara Mountain. So if they are looking for him, that is where to look. Togo lost a little of its peace, particularly in the capital. 4 persons were killed and dozens injured. They were demonstrating that the oligarchy of the Eyadema should come to an end. You may recall that the first coup in Africa was staged by Nyasigbe Eyadema when he overthrew Silvanio Olympio. He ruled until 1968 when he died, and his son took over and is still the president.
In 1968, Eyadema was one of the founders of ECOWAS in 1975.
75, yes.
All right, Baya Tebil, thank you for being with us on the program today. We appreciate you and see you again tomorrow. Okay, well, it's Good Morning Nigeria still on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll be dealing with how to ramp up the quality of healthcare facilities as well as healthcare provision in the country.
I don't come out my hand from oil bunkering.
General, what you going to yarn? What did the yarn serve? I don't understand though.
Because they spoil our water and our environment. And they cause our people serious harm. Militants say, you know good. Me, I not do again Sam. Because why? Change begins with me.
General Tombu!
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
What manner of man wakes up in the morning, eats breakfast, gets dressed, and goes out with the sole purpose of duping his clients?
Where the dollar now? Make I check them now.
Now why?
Supposing if it is fake.
They are everywhere. The bad apples who spoil the rest. They can shortchange you. They also swap your good currency and give you counterfeits.
These people are criminal.
They are the bad money changers, mostly on the roadsides.
And they don't even get office address.
Honesty means nothing to them.
You know that happened like this. Where's my money?
Watch Prophet John Bull this week and see how this rot manifests, even as you laugh like never before.
Eh? Buddha, come and separate us now. You're not a serious-minded fighter. By now, the frontier person I.
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow,
The largest data network
Glow Unlimited.
Right, as the saying goes, health is wealth. A healthy nation is a wealthy nation. So, what is the worth of the Nigeria's healthcare sector in terms of quality and healthcare services, as well as manpower development? Let's listen to Omotala Omojola's background report to kickstart our conversation.
Dr. Oluyinka Olutoye, a Nigerian doctor based in the United States of America, made history by performing a major surgery on a fetus during gestation. Reports also say that it was not the first time that Olutoye and his team performed this kind of surgery. Olurotimi Badero, another medical doctor of Nigerian origin based also in the US, reportedly is the world's only combined heart and kidney doctor. They are among thousands of Nigeria-trained doctors serving the public health sectors of other countries around the world. Curiosity naturally asks why. According to a 2013 article posted on Council on Foreign Relations, the president of the Nigerian Medical Association then, Dr. Osahan Enabolele, said, and I quote, "Out of the 71,740 medical doctors registered with the Medical and Dental Council, only 27,000 are practicing in Nigeria. Some 7,000 Nigerian medical doctors work in public health in the United Kingdom and the United States, while others have left the medical profession altogether. This brain drain has been attributed to poor work environment, poor remuneration, and perhaps inadequate room for research and healthy competition. These statistics call for concern as the World Health Organization report shows that it is 1 doctor to 600 patients in Nigeria, and for the country to match the health needs of a population, more doctors must be engaged. In terms of capital flights, Nigeria tops the figures in Africa's medical tourism abroad, netting some $2 billion in treatment for 2016 alone. The diagnosis of some terminal ailments like cancer and some diseases that relate to internal organs have proven to be like death sentences, as not only are the treatment facilities inadequate, but also the know-how to handle some cases are lacking. The cost of treatment where available is often too expensive. Inconsistency in government policies and the will to implement have also been noted as a challenge to the development of the health sector. There is also the issue of clear definition of roles among primary, secondary and tertiary health institutions, which is said to be affecting capacity. Will Nigeria ever be able to change this trend? Join us on the program as experts provide answers.
All right, thank you very much there, Omotala Omojola, for that background report. Of course, we have 3 guests with us here in the studios to discuss the ramification in this particular subject matter. First, we'd like to welcome the Chief Consultant Obstetrician and Gynecologist. He's also a Chief IVF Specialist and Chairman of NISA Premier Hospital here in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. Dr. Ibrahim Wada, a pleasure to have you join us on the program this morning.
Very happy to be here. Thank you.
All right.
All right, we also have with us the President of the Association of General and Private Medical Practitioners of Nigeria, in the person of Dr. Frank Odafen. Dr. Odafen is also was also a member of the 2013 Tony Lumelu Committee on Development of world-class hospitals in each of the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. Dr. Dapo, thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
Dr. Christopher, Dr. Christopher Tabo is the Chief Medical Director of Alliance Hospital, also here in Abuja. He also joins us for this conversation. Dr. Tabo, thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the subject matter, I think it's useful for the benefit of our viewers and indeed for those who are concerned about the quality of healthcare that we get in the country to know precisely what went wrong and when. I'm saying this against the background of what turned out to be the famous statement that was made over a generation ago when the Second Republic fell, when it was sacked in a coup. The late General Sani Abacha read the coup statement on the 31st of December 1983. And part of what was said then as a rationale for sacking the Second Republic was that our hospitals had become mere consulting clinics. That was in 1983. Now that's almost 34 years. That's a little over a generation now. But today, the bane of the health sector would appear to be medical tourism. You listen to the background report by our correspondent, and we all know this, that wealthy, not so wealthy Nigerians, public officials, everybody at the drop of a hat takes a flight out. Where did we get it wrong? That from mere consulting clinics, we are now, as it were, the laughingstock of the entire world, unable to take care of ourselves, and everybody taking a flight out. Let's begin with Dr. Wada.
Planning is probably my first point about where we got it wrong. More Nigerians were beginning to develop confidence in Western medicine from a background of traditional medicine. Second, that burden was transferred only to the public sector because there was dearth of private clinics at that time. And even so, it was a one-man show that couldn't really touch what was wrong. So over too many people were expecting too much too soon. And yet, the rate at which government could invest in medicine was limited because they were also having to build roads, airports, and other things. The final nail on that created this problem is the exodus, which has been highlighted here. People seeking greener pastures, not just to train and bring their wealth of knowledge back home, but to shift their knowledge the other way. So investment and loss of personnel, which we are not able to replace as soon as we could, has led to the crisis that we find ourselves in, that people's confidence turns more to the outside world than to Nigeria.
All right, Dr. Wada, thanks a lot. Dr. Frank Odafen, what's your take on this? Historically, how did we get ourselves into this
I
challenge?
will anchor the very unwholesome health situation we're in on one, lack of commitment. The very low premium we generally place on health. If government has been devoted to scaling up the quality of healthcare delivery since the 70s, this would have been possible. I remember when the head of state during the wartime, General Yakubu Gowon, we had money. What did he say? It's what to do with money that was the problem of Nigeria. Can you imagine if from that time we started to build our health sector? By now, the quality and quantity of the availability of healthcare centers that will be comparable to world-class centers would have been in this country. So it is lack of political will and commitment to healthcare development in this country. That is the problem. And even the exodus is predicated on that. If doctors who are trained in Nigeria by Nigerians were retained in this country, the skill and knowledge they have acquired over time would have been domiciled in this country. And in fact, there would also have been a reversal of healthcare tourism in sub-Saharan Africa. So I believe it is not too late. If from this day onwards, we are committed individually at our different niches and at governmental level, local government, states, and federal, we have the means. If, for instance, the least requirement of the World Health Organization and the Abuja Declaration of all heads of governments in Nigeria, 2001, that at a minimum of 50% of our national budget should be devoted to health. We say health is wet. It's only a healthy populace that are the prime movers of the economy. The developmental indices of a country are dependent on healthy populace. But for instance, this current year, what is this thing? It's about 4.6%. The paucity of our investment is laughable. And I believe this consciousness of the need for us to create a healthy populace, irrespective of where they live, irrespective of the agenda, will help us to firm up the quality of healthcare delivery in this country.
All right, Dr. Dafe, thank you. Dr. Tabo, I don't know, do you have a contrary, do you have an addition or subtraction to what they have said in terms of historical development?
Okay, thank you for the question. I think that there has been a paradigm shift. At independence, 1960, there were 218 hospitals in Nigeria. More than half of that number was owned by missions. They were mission hospitals. As government took over tertiary healthcare, the decadence became very much obvious because there's much government can do. And I think the solution to this is to, for government to move away and take the back seat. They should do regulation while they give opportunities for the private sector to invest in healthcare and build the healthcare. Nigeria is poor. Our annual budget in a year is less than what a state budget for health in Canada. I was in Calgary in Alberta 2012. I did a study on their health system. They budget $18 billion for health. For Alberta, Alberta is 4 million people. And that $18 billion is what the whole country is fighting for as a national budget. So even though nothing is stolen, nothing is wasted, it is still far from being enough. So government should quit trying to improve healthcare system by investing directly in health. They should create the enabling environment for private sector to come in. Most of the hospitals we run to in India and the US and other places, they are private hospitals. Okay. I think that should be the narrative.
Okay, so in addition to the shifting of knowledge from Dr. Wada, and of course lack of commitment and lack of investment, as well as when government came in, these are some of the issues that have brought us to where we are. But successive governments.
Yeah, yes. Claire, I'm just wondering, just the point that the guests have touched on, with brain drain, of course, and the issue of lack of planning. When did we notice the exodus of medical personnel? This didn't appear to be the case before the advent of SAP in 1986. And what stories did your colleagues who went out there, because they came back with fantastic tales. If their colleagues couldn't have a car here, when they came back, they had cars, they had houses. What stories did they come back with in terms of planning and management of the healthcare system where they were? Dr. Wada again.
Well, to be honest, the healthcare system outside the country was built over so many years. So I don't want to deceive us by saying we could do it overnight. But the system there is that every individual will have an address of a doctor that he or she will talk to when slightly sick, not when he's almost moribund. Mm-hmm. And that is the first thing. So, and there's, from that primary level, which is almost a fundamental right, let's put it that way, that at the day you're born is the day you know your doctor. It's not so here yet. That's number one. The second thing is, should your problem be more than primary, your journey path is clear in health. One thread. Not this is local government, that is state government, that's federal government. You don't notice that. So how will the system then not study itself? Because cases are known from the very beginning and analysis are done, and the healthcare can now target where it hurts most and use their investment to get results. And on the other hand, here you have a rather chaotic situation still. And I've had the opportunity to mention this before. Whose door do you knock? Unless you have NHIS or some kind of insurance, if you don't have money in your pocket, you are stuck. And so you wait until it becomes too much of a problem and then more expensive to use the meager resources we have to deal with you. So the investment drive is targeted at the population's needs. The private sector is encouraged to help government, whether in the United Kingdom, in Canada, or in the United States. It is not a totally government purview at all.
All right. I don't know if we can move along now. Yeah. We've been able to identify at least some of the underlying causes of our situation. But successive governments have also tried to bridge these gaps. Try to reverse brain drain and all that. Try to bring in investors. tried, of course, to show a lot more commitment. But latest health index from the WHO and some medical journals have put Nigeria, at a position of between 187 or 140, 187. I don't know. Is that a true reflection of our status in terms of access and quality? Let me start with Dr. Daffy.
Well, we have a systemic problem, malaise, in our country. The problem too is anchored on data. The data we have, how reliable, how dependable is it? How are the data sourced? And this brings me to the issue of private sector involvement in healthcare generally. Most of the time, the data from, say, health that are being released to the outside world are skewed in favor only of the public sector, only government data that are being released. Whereas the bulk of the populace, over 75% of Nigerians, are treated by private hospitals. And when government want to collect data, they are not sourced from private hospitals. Even private hospital involvement in data collection, analysis, and monitoring is not sought. So that is a fundamental cleave in the whole process. Now, what is the remediation? We really have to be, government has to come out very aggressively.
Before we go to remediation.
Yes.
Yes, we'll put you on hold there because remediation will be, yes, Dr. Tabo, in terms of, successive improvements, how far are we? Let's take our minds back to the past, maybe 5, 10 years, access and quality.
Well, successive governments have tried to solve the problem the same old way that did not produce the desired result. Professor Oyembuchi Chukwu, when he was Minister of Health, tried his hands on a few things. Very good intentions, wanted to bring in the private health sector to partner with government to improve healthcare, but that didn't see the light of the day. I think it was shut down at the level of the Federal Executive Council. If you ask me, I would say not much has been achieved in the last few years. And to answer the question on the WHO classification of Nigeria, I can tell you that they are not far from being correct, because they work with data, they work with statistics and facts. Yes. So with the economy continually being depressed, so also is the healthcare system. How much is available for healthcare in Nigeria? My submission has always been that the government should leave the tertiary healthcare from to private sector. They should focus on primary health, immunization, reduction of maternal mortality, basic primary healthcare centers. Why the tertiary healthcare? The real thing that take people out of this country is tertiary healthcare, and that's what government should create the enabling environment for private sector to play, because they are the key players. Healthcare is business, and that's what people must understand. Government must understand that. Just like banks.
Yes. Can we examine some of the models? Because we talked about some, previous models which didn't work. You made reference to the, immediate past Minister of Health. There was also the Tony Elumelu Committee, during the Obasanjo period, which also was aimed at, revitalizing some of the tertiary institutions.
Yeah, Obasanjo was a VAMED project.
Yes. See, as long as government is the driver of that process, it will not work. Look at the Ibom Specialist Hospital that was built by the former governor of Akwa Ibom State. Beautiful investment, great investment, brought all the good hands, but that place is practically run down today, less than 3 years. Why? Because government cannot sustain good health care.
Well, Dr. Tabo, thanks. Well, it's clear, and I think, gentlemen, one of the points that probably we need to drive at has to do with, shall we say, hospital governance and one leg of it, and therefore, overall management of our healthcare system. So, what do we know at this time? We're talking about, from a layman's perspective, you would say Nigerians' access traditional medical practitioners, they access public hospitals, and then they also access private hospitals. And we have seen the growth of private hospitals over the past decades. But essentially, the question to ask is, what is wrong with hospital governance or healthcare governance by government that minus corruption, which we know, of course, is a cancer that ravages the entire system? Dr. Wada.
Well, I've been fortunate to have worked in government and then also in private, so it's ABC to me to try to explain the difference. Let us start with the maintenance culture, because you look at the National Hospital and the hospital he's just referred to, a lot of money is invested in building this edifice, but we are short on maintenance. So that money goes down, 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 and every day the little resources they have, they try to repair this and all that. Second is the personnel. Sometimes employment in these hospitals have nothing to do with the reality of what they need to employ. So because there are other influences, I'm the, if you like, the commissioner or the this, and I got to help my people kind of idea. In a way, it's corruption, but that cannot affect a private hospital because you have to pay at the end of the day. So we have ended up with a situation where somewhere between 80 and 90% of the money going to our public hospitals are for staff salaries alone and emoluments. Less than 20% to upgrade the equipment, less than 20% to train people. We're in a box. How are we going to move out of this box? Except we allowed private thinking. So the governance is faulty from the very beginning. And so you go, you have 20 doctors, 20 nurses, not really the most productive staff, because at the end of the day, there are no drugs in the pharmacy. And the equipment they need to use is not there. So catch-22 is probably a best description for most, not all, our public health institutions.
Dr. Daffin.
You see, my take in all of this is that the private sector should be the efficiency and the goal-driven nature of the private sector should be leveraged upon by society, by government, to achieve a proficient and effective healthcare delivery for Nigerians. The problem with government is health sector is taken as a social venture, which it is anyway. But if you bring the business side to it and you want service delivery nature, you must rely on the private sector. For instance, most hospitals built by government, structurally, they look edifying, they look aesthetically appealing, but functionally deficient. And one of the problems one also has seen is somersault in government policy executions. A state governor, for instance, builds an hospital, say in my state, in Edo State. A specialty hospital was built by a previous administration, and the coming administration ought to see government as a continuum. But it's not so. Trivial pedestrian issues are considered. We abandon that and start another gigantic white elephant project that will not see the light of day. And even when it does, what happens? Round pegs are not placed in round holes. If we begin to we want to develop technologically, scientifically, and to be competitive in community of nations. In that way, meritocracy must be in the upper hierarchy. Let's take National Hospital, for example. The concept during Abuja was that it's for hospital for children and women. That was beautiful and excellent. But at the end of the day, as a national hospital is today, it's an amorphous institution. We do not know whether it's private hospital, whether it's primary healthcare, secondary healthcare, or tertiary. At the beginning, it was supposed to take care of supra-tertiary healthcare problems. All the wonderful teaching hospitals like UCH Ibadan, one of the best hospitals in those days in sub-Saharan Africa. What problem they could not solve, we are supposed to be, as far as health of women and children we are concerned, we are supposed to refer to national hospital. But today, somebody with malaria goes to national hospital. And that in itself decapitates the institutional nature of the hospital, and it prevents it from caring for the supra-tertiary issue that is supposed to have taken care of. And this is a big problem we have. So,
sorry, Dr. Adafe.
Yeah.
Again, Dr. Wada has mentioned some points together with what you just said. How does this come about? Sorry, how does it come about that at some point an idea loses its way? You're describing the National Hospital now, what it was intended to achieve. At what point was the mandate of the National Hospital altered? And how do we also deal with the situation of personnel mismanagement, including recruitment? If you recruit persons who are not supposed to be in an environment, and then you, as you said, round pegs in square holes, how, well, of course, you can say this is nepotism or otherwise political concentration, but how can we overcome some of these challenges?
Well, you see, we are in a political, socio-economic environment where I have sympathy for people who are in government. For instance, somebody is a senator or a minister. He has a constituency that he takes care of. And there are obvious expectations from such people in public service. And one of them is employing their constituents where they are qualified or where they are supposed to be qualified. But the thing that the negative modulation in all of this is that in the quest to satisfy their political constituency or their own personal, to scale up their own personal image, the wrong things are done. I don't believe there's any part of this country that doesn't have people of merit. If we consider that, we can do this by employing the right persons. And it's only the right person that can be rightly managed. But if ab initio, from the bottom up, the bottom in the pyramid is super saturated with unqualified, undeserving people, and even maybe the head is undeserving, doesn't have the competency, then the organic management of the whole edifice will collapse.
All right, we've mentioned the issue of National Hospital. And my question goes to Dr. Wada. Dr. Wada, of course,
I was there.
Yes, you were there. So
yeah.
What exactly happened to National Hospital? Quite a number of people have one reservation or the other about in terms of services and even access.
National Hospital started on a very positive note. It was the hope of Nigeria. It wasn't supposed to be a government thing, but an NGO managed by private considerations, even though it's a government hospital, more like public-private partnership that we are seeing these days. At a point when the politicians came in, and I salute Doctor for saying political considerations, it was the Star Hospital of Abuja. So if you restrict it to women and children alone, what's going to be? So they changed it from the headquarters, I guess, considering National Assembly, their families and stuff like that. So it was changed from National Hospital for Women and Children, excellent idea, to National Hospital. So every player can now come in. And what does it do? You can't, if you didn't plan that it would be a national hospital, you only plan for a hospital for women and children. Halfway when it's already built, you say, no, it's now National Hospital. What do you expect? And that's what we're getting. So the influence is not just in its terminology or name, it was also in the inpouring of people that it wasn't designed to house. And many of them did not come because they were the best practitioners in the field. And National Hospital was only to attract the likes of Otabo and co, top guys. But then I'm a senator and my wife is joining me from somewhere, so please help. And a note goes round and she's employed. And she's not a crack nurse, for example. And worse still, her psychology is how she got in top down rather than bottom up. She will not obey the laws or be, you know, very strict on a professional scale. And what can you do about that? I think that's the story of the national.
Is that story, this example, is it replicated in other tertiary institutions? We have a number of teaching hospitals, you know, across the federation. We know, of course, that the equipment got run down, but do we have a sense that some of these things also play out there, and therefore by the time you have the aggregate, we have the mess that we are in?
To a large extent, all of these are subject to one, political or economic considerations. And the worst part is overstaffing and lack of productivity. So you could have a number of people there whose salaries must be paid, but they haven't got instruments to work. And we can cope with that all over the many teaching hospitals we have.
Dr. Tabo, what's your
we need to
experience?
we need to dislocate that.
Well, with National Hospital, is it an issue of governance?
Yeah, governance issues, attitude of staff, ambience. For instance, let me take an example. My MRI broke down. I called China straight, and same day they shipped the parts from China. In 48 hours, the MRI was back to work. If this was in a government hospital, it would take 6 months, and that might as well be the end of the machine. Huge investment, $1 million wasted. Then the attitude of staff towards patients, they think they are doing patients favor, when in fact they are supposed to be doing their job. Patients are seen as lepers rather than the kings. So the orientation, because the hospital staffing is gotten from the society, and the training is not there, the qualified manpower is not there, the overstaffing is there, then the issue of corruption. Even if you put $10 billion to every teaching hospital today, come back in 3 years, the hospitals will come back to what they are now.
That's money down the drain. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes. But I know you also sometimes have to outsource your personnel.
Yes, where I don't have.
Is that also a challenge?
Yes, where I don't have comparative advantage, I outsource. And that's, even some government hospitals are doing that now. University of Lagos, for instance, there are some facilities within the university, the teaching hospital. They are outsourced, and those ones keep functioning very well because private sectors have come in to run the place. But if you put it fully in the hands of, go around the country and all the teaching hospitals, how many MRIs are working? How many CT scans are working? Majority of the big machines that are working in this country today are the ones in the private hospitals.
All right, Dr. Tabo, thanks. Dr. Adafen, you were a member of the last committee, that's 2013, that we had. It's loosely referred to as the Tony Elumelu Committee on the Development of World-Class Hospitals. In Nigeria, we like things world-class, international standards, international best practices, XYZ. But here we are, 4 years later. Add that to what happened to VAMED, add that, to the drive by state governors and state governments to bring in investors. People are asking whether there are no investors also in the healthcare center. But essentially, what did the committee try to do? And what has happened in terms of evaluation of its exertions?
You see, the committee, what happened? We x-rayed the problems of healthcare delivery in Nigeria. And we said medical tourism is taking a substantial toll on our economy. Capital flight, over $1.5 billion leaves our country annually abroad to India and allied countries. Why can't we domicile this money in this country? How many people will he employ if we do so? Then we sat down and I the brother and said, look, we have the capacity, if there's political will, to create world-class hospital in every geopolitical zone of this country. When we say world-class, we really mean world-class, of the standard of Ohio Clinic, Mayo Clinic, and the best hospitals in Indian and Asian countries. And this one, we did it over 2 years planning, and the report was submitted to the past administration. Well, I would like to hope that the past administration passed it to this current administration. I don't know, but I'm not in a position to say that. But what we are saying that the experiences we are having, the climate situation that we are in, they all call for a concerted effort. Look, do you need to tell somebody? I will say, you don't tell a sensible child, when there is smoke, live there. When you smoke, when you inside smoke, you know it's choking. Even for the sake of self-preservation, for the sake of our national security, and for the sake of everything that is good and sovereign. Do you need to tell government that to create a world-class hospital? I calculated at that time. To create an efficient hospital in, say, in North Central, for instance, if we can deploy about maximum of $500 million, 500 million naira, $1 billion naira, we create a world-class hospital. 500 billion naira, we create a world-class hospital in one geopolitical zone. We have the means. And we are saying it's not only government. Government will create the welcoming investment ambience for investors. People like our very rich people like Dangote, it can be wooed by government. Come and invest in health sector. We know the problem that many people are health sector investment averse. What is the reason? Because of rate of return. Many businessmen are concerned with rapid, quick return. Even commercial banks. Commercial banks, government can create a policy that makes it mandatory. Commercial bank create, like we have educational trust fund. Create a trust fund where people will put in money. Commercial banks can all come together. Can you imagine if 10% of the profits, the huge profit commercial banks are recording per annum? If such 10% is put set aside annually for about 5 years.
Was this part of the recommendation of your committee?
It was part of the recommendation. And even we also recommended service of telephone. Take, even it's 1 kobo per call, make it available. So that if government looks at all these areas, you find that the burden will be off government, because we know government has competitive demands for its slim resources. That's why economic management is there. And we know is unfortunately we're in a economic monoculturalism. They highly dependent on oil. And the glut in oil market, the politics in oil market, you know, many people now are leaving fossil energy. They are going to environmentally friendly energy sources. And that means for the next 10 years, strategically speaking, our oil prices will not go beyond $60 per barrel. And that should make us wear our taking caps. Government should create a think tank. What do we do? And in the health sector, we have private people, medical entrepreneurs, who are available and are willing and are committed to offering compassionate, enduring healthcare services to this country. But we are pleading with government. Create an enabling environment.
Well, Dr. Dafe, well, thanks. One of the points you just talked about now will be sources of funding for the world-class hospitals. Ownership, governance, and the management, these are matters that could also arise. Dr. Wada, what's your take on this with regard to what has been done? I don't know, for instance, well, that's the point of that. Let's get your reaction first to what Dr. Dafe said before I introduce another issue that's related to this.
Well, we speak with one voice. I don't agree with the 500 million. I think much less can do that. But there is an experiment that is staring at us in the face, and that is the public-private partnership funding of Garki Hospital. Dr. Tabo was there at a point. I've been there for 10 years. Garki Hospital has been working up from the typical government system setting to a vibrant, privately driven, government-owned enterprise under our own very eyes, doing things that are atypical achievements of anything that's totally public. I'm happy that the government of Chief Obasanjo took that decision 10 years ago. I am happy that it is a success story by most descriptions. Nothing is 100%. And I believe that that is a model of the way forward. Government has investments enough, I think, in medical infrastructure, but they are not capable, historically or otherwise, even into the future, of saying this is a properly well-run government hospital. It doesn't exist anywhere in the world like that, even in India. So it's the private sector that's pulling nations out of the crisis. And I think Garki has been pulled out in a way that more people need to be interested. Where was it? Where is it now? Where is it heading for?
What are the critical success factors in the Garki experience?
Management, of course. Maintenance, of course. These are the issues. The fact that it's not looking totally at profit motives. It's looking at making history. It's trying to say, can a private sector run a fairly big government hospital? To my mind and to my conscience, the answer is a capital yes.
Dr. Tabo, you say you had experience with the Garki experiment?
Yes, Garki Hospital, as run by Dr. Wadahe, he was my boss at that time. It's a sterling example of the success of public-private partnership in Nigeria, and I think it should be replicated in many places. Yes, the cost may be slightly higher than what you have in government hospital, but it's better to have a functional system that is slightly more expensive than to have a failed system, because the failed system cannot keep Nigerians in the country, they will still live. So that's a very good one. But what government should be doing now, like what they did in India, is one, make land available for the private hospitals. For instance, someone went to show me a land for hospital, 1 hectare. He said it's 300 million in Abuja here for land alone. And the guy is not a doctor. So how did the land get to him? Meanwhile, hospital owners, people who are ready to build hospitals, don't have land. But someone who is a businessman has a land and he wants to sell to government, to private investors. That's wrong already. 2, tax holidays. Private hospitals should be given tax holidays, those who want to come in and invest big. And then import duty removal. Take out the import duties, and so on and so forth. And then give the hospitals mandate to take at least a certain percentage of patients as indigent patients, where they will not pay anything at all or highly subsidized. And you find a lot of private investors wanting to come in. More than half of the hospitals in India where Nigerians go to are owned by people who are not even doctors. They are investors and they are making their monies back. And 72% of Indian hospitals or hospital beds in India are private hospitals. The government hospitals are like Nigerian hospitals. Nobody goes there. They are infested with rats and cockroaches. It's only the very poor that go there. So we have examples. We are not reinventing the wheel. Let the government realize that, look, we cannot run this, because strikes will continue to be. And the strike is also part of the reasons why people have lost confidence in government hospitals. The agitations will continue. What the worry government is having is that people will not be able to pay if it is left in the hands of private sector.
I'll put you on hold there.
Yeah,
because that is the key.
Yeah, it's key. The key is also expressed as the greed of the private sector.
Yeah, Kingsley, let's take a break now. Let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll address that.
Thank you.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
You're welcome back, but if you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria. We are reaching you live on Africa's largest television network, the Nigerian Television Authority. Of course, we are discussing how Nigeria can drastically reduce the incidence of medical tourism. We still have our 3 guests here with us, Dr. Odafen, we also have Dr. Wada, as well as Dr. Utabo. And there are reactions already from our viewers, and of course, these reactions have come in by way of tweets. You can also send in your own reactions, taking advantage of our Twitter handle. You can see there at the bottom left-hand corner on your screen at NTAGM. We'll take those tweets right away, and then we'll continue with the conversation.
All right, Sean Remy, your tweet it is possible. Let's vote for people who can deliver and let them develop the health sector.
Austino, that's Edo Augustine Twist. The government should invest in the healthcare sector. Healthcare is a human rights issue and therefore it should be free from the point of use.
And Mike Kanyako tweets, Nigerian doctors are very good. They make marks in USA, Europe, and so on. They should be supported here with good equipment and working conditions. It is not the responsibility of government alone, as rightly pointed out by, of course, Kingsley and Bayo in previous GMN program, you know, but everyone.
Well, Achilles Chud tweets, medical tourism can become history if we show commitment to upgrading, equipping, staffing, and financing at least one hospital per state. Make one hospital per state a professionally administered health facility with the right staff, equipment, and electricity.
And again, Dele Jack Solomon tweets, we have to make concerted efforts to upgrade our healthcare facilities to the standard that would attract patronage and stop Nigerians traveling overseas. May God help our leaders and people to right the wrongs.
Hassan Labran tweets, Nigeria should start developing their human and material resources first to pave the way for medical sector development.
And Festus Akimboewa tweets, thank you, NTA, for raising important conversation on health tourism. Hope Nigerians will have compassionate discussion on this sensitive matter. My concern is many Nigerians travel for medical treatment abroad without knowing the quality of the treatment and how well qualified the doctors there are.
Now, Atkins Dada tweets, says Nigeria too, where it could be a medical tourism destination for the rest of the world.
Indeed. And Shinez Esang tweets, medical tourism will continue to rise and deplete our scarce forests as long as the hospitals remain underfunded, funds diversion by CMDs.
Yeah, then we have this one from the two Ibrahim. It says corruption, corruption, corruption. Now, government property must not work to make a way for my own syndrome, and that's the problem.
All right, and Ibrahim to the tweets, corruption has always negatively affected our healthcare system. Human resources, health facilities, and policy implementation. With current national healthcare policy, we shall get there. We need funding and partnerships.
Tim tweets, big problem, he writes, lack of management and managers.
And Raf tweets, this trend has to do mainly with lack of infrastructure, good medical equipment for diagnosis and attitude of some medical personnel. We have some of the best brains in the world of medicine, but some feel too big to even attend to patients urgently. This has to change.
Ibrahim Tudu again tweets, the problem is the government is paying special salary scales to health personnel only to manage dilapidated and empty consulting clinics.
All right, these are the tweets that we have. We expect more to come in. Of course, we're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and we're looking at how, of course, we can develop our healthcare infrastructure and halt medical tourism. Dr. Tabo, I halted you at the point you started talking about, of course, high cost, emanating from application of private PPP, and that usually is a trigger. When you talk about, bringing in the private, public-private partnership in the healthcare, it raises a lot of questions. Is there a possibility of finding a nexus between affordability and care?
Yes.
Let me start from here. Yes.
Yeah, you see, in medical practice, for a medical professional, there are certain indices on which his practice should be anchored. Accessibility to healthcare, affordability, which is very key, and acceptability. Now, let's talk. The main thing that affects health is affordability. Is there a way, as private medical practitioners, you're supposing with government, to harmonize this so that healthcare, qualitative healthcare, will be available to people and be acceptable and accessible? Yes, there's a channel for this. And what is the channel? The fact that in a socio-political economy, government is the greatest spender. And practices of private medical professionals are anchored on government policies and initiatives and monitoring and outcomes. So how do we do this? You have a private investor, But Dr. Tabo enumerated. But the enabling environment is not there. Somebody who is enthusiastic, he has the skill and knowledge, and a mega capital venture. Now, for instance, in Abuja, no land. Even those of us who are practicing, every year you have to pay money as a change of land use. You pay a lot of money.
A lot.
For land use. Meanwhile, there are no no land for a hospital. And the hospital must be situated in the community so it can easily be accessible and available to the people. So how can we now manage? Government, lower the scale so that healthcare venturists and entrepreneurs can access all these. Okay. Make land available, and we have constantly, like Private Medical Association of Nigeria, AGPNPN, used to be called. We have written to governments at different levels. Create a trust fund, a health bank, where I am interested, I want to build a world-class hospital. It's done, like 3 of us can combine, many doctors from different states, we have the scale, we combine. We want to build this. Government, let us have cheap fund, capital fund. Say 6%, 3%, 1% as obtained abroad. Because that's what happens in India and other Asian countries. And apart from making this thing available, the capital available, there is moratorium. Like commercial banks, you assess them, the interest rate is very high. They want this money within 3 years, within 2 years. But like in India, you get money, the moratorium, no interest for about 5 to 10 years, and the tenure is up to 30 years. So
do we need, I mean, we've seen what the Bank of Industry has been doing with MSMEs. We have also seen what the central bank has also been doing. We do not have a health bank in the meantime, by the way. So what could be useful in this regard? Sovereign wealth fund, could it come in here?
Yes, but what is more useful is, I call it self-help, and that is medical insurance. Medicare in the US, UK, anywhere in the world, is pegged on the principles my friend has enumerated. You can't cheat on it. You can't not pay your staff. You can't not pay electricity, which goes higher and higher, etc. So the feeling that someday we'll wake up and healthcare is just free, we have to remember somebody is paying for it. And who is that person? The well paying to help the sick. Nigerians, us. It is not a... Bank is part of the story, whether it's sovereign wealth fund or not. You can bring in the hospitals. How do you sustain them on that? What I'm saying is about sustaining. That's right. You, the individual that's sick, need not pay at the point of entry. And I can say in the hospitals that I'm connected with right now, almost 2 out of 3 patients are not paying because they come with either the national health insurance or private HMO cost. So everybody will spend a little, either through our telephone lines, the way he said it, or through premiums, yeah? Monthly premiums that you pay. You can use that to pool money that helps the very sick or anyone that is sick. And we cannot ignore that aspect. And I think it should be developed. Private players must be allowed into the insurance field because the NHIS, anytime we get to discuss it, has fault lines.
Okay, I know that you talked about Gariki. Everybody seems to have agreed that Gariki Hospital might be an acceptable model, but it still has its own challenges because a lot more people who are on the low-income cadre can't still afford services of Gariki. Dr. Tabo, some time ago, you talked about a model, and I know how many people you have been able to, treat, pro bono, free of charge.
Free of charge, yeah.
Is it possible that low-income earners can access quality service from a private hospital, a hospital in Nigeria that is of standard? Well, let's use that word.
It's done less. Yes, it's done everywhere. When Dr. Wada took over Gariki Hospital, government was no longer paying for the salaries of the staff that was there. And government was no longer making money available for the running of the hospital. That money can be used to pay premium for poor unemployed citizens. Sure. If government hands off tertiary care and they create an enabling environment for private hospitals, by doing what Dr. Odafe said, first of all, the cost would drop. Okay, because now we have to, we are our government. We have to provide electricity, we have to provide roads to the place, we have to buy land, we have to do everything. We pay heavy taxes and import duties. If all those are taken away, the cost that will be transferred to the patient will be reduced, first. Secondly, governments can subsidize health care. The money that is saved by removing their hands from government-run hospitals can be put into a fund, maybe NHIS or any office that is working.
But we have the sovereign wealth
no, that's not for, it's not for health.
It's not specifically for health.
Yes,
so oil.
Because government can actually subsidize the health or even pay for the health of people without, with good planning. Several billions of naira is budgeted every year for health and is pushed into the government hospitals, and yet the return is not as encouraging. So government can push this government through an intermediary that will be paying the private hospitals, you know, from time to time, and people walk in. The reason citizens are afraid of private hospital taking over the health system is because they are afraid that they will have to pay through
what
their
can government do right? We seem to be talking about private practitioners. What can government do right, and how can government get it right?
There's one example as well, the private PPP. I don't know whether it's still on. The Lagos State University Teaching Hospital, which is at Ikeja, you know, just very close to the airport, close to the airport there. They also have, you know, a PPP arrangement. I have not been in there, but there were positive reviews as to what that hospital was doing. But
that was at the time, Kingsley.
I haven't been there recently, so I don't know what the status is. But gentlemen, all of this, we're talking about, you know, proper conceptualization of healthcare management, you know, healthcare delivery. And again, for the benefit of our viewers, part of the issue that President Donald Trump is having with Americans, you know, seeking to scrap Obamacare, has to do with, you know, how you pay. How you pay, you know, for your health care. Dr. Wada's point, we're also talking about that there is no way that at some point that health care can be free. Somebody else, you know, is paying for it. But again, we were in this country when NHIS was introduced, and the whole idea was, oh, yeah, this is going to be a paradigm shift. You know, people cannot afford it. You know, we contribute the whole role of insurance and so on and so forth. But Dr. Wada says, look, there are fault lines. Dr. Odafe, have we also missed the boat there, or do we have to retrace our steps and get into PPP? What exactly do we need to do in terms of a proper conceptualization of a reformed healthcare system that helps also to stymie medical tourism?
Yeah, the answer to all of this is universal health coverage. Because only universal health coverage can answer all these questions and can accommodate both the rich, not so rich, and the downtrodden, the very poor. And what is in universal health coverage? Government, again, everything comes back to government. Government, when we say government, now you have the executive, you have the legislature. Why can't government submit an executive bill making it compulsory for every Nigerian to be enrolled into the National Health Insurance Scheme? Because you see, as at now, government is only favoring people who are in government. Only the federal workers, the federal civil servants, are key as at now. That's why, even though this institution has started since 2005, only 1.8% of the population is covered as at now. And you see, insurance is volume driven. It's a question of numbers. And because of the paucity of the enrollees in the panel, doctors, the healthcare providers, they don't have enough people to treat. And because of that, if you have 10 people on your enrollee panel, and they come and the insurance premium is usually low because it's pooling of resources and risk. If you have only 10, for instance, and your premium is small, you see, you'll be demarketing the program. So as at now, both the consumers, the patients, and the doctors are the marketers of the program. But if it becomes important for everybody, about 200 million Nigerians, so that the average healthcare service provider will have a minimum of 5 to 10,000 people on his enrollee panel, he will be satisfied. He will have the economic dividend to lean on. So when patients come, patients will be treated as obtains in any aspect of economic pursuit. The patient is the queen, the patient is the king. The patient must be respected, the patient must be treated with compassion, and the quality of care must be assured, meeting minimum standard. So the problem really is healthcare providers are not very happy with the system. They're not happy because they don't have returns. And like we have just enumerated, they are practicing in an economic milieu that is very unwholesome, that is strangulating them and making them of the blood of livelihood. So if government can promulgate a law, National Assembly for instance, making national health insurance universal, making it compulsory, I will assure you, give us 5 years, the private sector, the prime mover of qualitative and efficient healthcare delivery, that is self-assured, will come in massively, and we are going to be sure of quality healthcare.
Thank you, Dr. Odafe. One point. I'm sure we all have personal stories with mission hospitals in the past. But this is, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, this is personal. My mom has never ceased to tell us her experience in the early 60s when she was on admission at a cool hospital. It was a Baptist hospital. How did the missionaries get it right? And how could religious organizations today also come in as medical entrepreneurs? Dr. Wada.
Really, to be honest, all players are needed right at this point. Even though we are talking private, the solution is not completely private because the society is not one homogeneous. So the not-for-profit or non-profit, whichever way you classify those non-governmental organizations like the missions and so on, they have a place, no doubt. But they've been once beaten. That means they had their schools, they had their hospitals, and they were all, if you like, nationalized at the point, thinking that we would do. So protective clauses and regulatory mechanisms need to be in place to encourage them to come back. We need them. We need, to some extent, government hospitals too. And we need a large portion that is economy-driven. That is what I call the private. There must be sense and balance in that third arm. I don't see anything else other than allowing them a free hand to play in the health market. But I would say yes, they are needed. Some are still surviving, but more need to come on board.
Dr. Otabo, charitable organizations like religious bodies, can they also come in?
They still fall under the group of the private sector, because any person that is not government will classify under private sector. They have the best practice, they have the experience, they have the discipline. Okay, like in India that we talk about, we still have non-governmental organizations running hospitals. We have the private sector, we have the government hospitals. But the moment of brilliance that we have in India that is attracting Nigerians are private hospitals. And in India, we still have the poor, we still have the downtrodden, people who cannot even afford care at all. They are in their numbers. And the doctor-to-patient ratio in India is one of the worst in the world. So let's not think that, oh, if you go to India, everywhere is starred with gold. No. What they were able to do is to take advantage of the private sector to build edifices, beautiful institutions that will attract people from around the world. I can tell you that a majority of the Indians cannot afford the private hospitals that Nigerians go to in India.
All right, let's again take a pause to take some tweets that have come in, and then we'll take the next set of questions, for our guests before we, of course, call it a day on this conversation. Kingsley, the first.
All right, Oranyeli Kelvin tweets, mismanagement of funds by the managers, that's the challenge.
And Duke Agono tweets, allow public sector to be handled with private profit mindset. That's the way out, in addition to leaders showing faith in the sector.
Abubakar Sadiq Mohammed tweets, I think the government only has to fight poverty and unemployment, and Nigerians will fall sick less.
When hospitals are going to be decongested?
Yeah, well, that sentence is incomplete, yes.
All right. Otaru Tunde tweets, Nigeria needs total overhaul of the healthcare system. Doctors and other allied healthcare personnel were not properly trained to handle cases. We can only have functional healthcare system only when the physiologist anatomist, biochemist, microbiologist, etc., are properly trained.
Rokpa Lokosen tweets, synergy in Nigeria should exist. Synergy in Nigeria should exist between the public and private sector to get effective delivery of health services.
All right, and Shinez sang again tweets, the maintenance culture in Nigeria cuts across all strata of the economy and hospitals not spared. Most of the general hospitals are in a sorry state.
And lastly, there, Sonny Michael Makoji. Now, government is encouraged to build infrastructure in this sector and hand over to the private sector. Public-private initiative is a way forward.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for your tweets. Let's again continue with the last segment of our conversation. Now, we seem to be having, some of our specialists in the diaspora, wanting to come home to, give, be part of the development here. Does that mean that we can now handle some of those ailments for which patients go abroad? Dr. Tabo?
Yeah, I was in Dubai for the Arab Health Conference, an international exhibition. And I met a doctor there who said, I wanted to come back to Nigeria to establish something. But when I got to the ministry, he said, I met a man who said I must give him something before he can pull through with the minister. These are the problems. Yes. That's why we keep talking about taking healthcare away from government and putting it in a private sector that will not demand for bribe from itself. Because you are there to make profit. You are there to make the place run well. So this is, we are not trying to say, we are not trying to ostracize government. No, but we are just saying the reality. We cannot continue to do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. The government will have to, when they think of improving healthcare, they should not think of government hospitals alone.
So what medical conditions now, because we're costing home, what medical conditions now can we, handle locally?
Presently, we do brain surgeries, we do spine surgeries, we do open heart surgeries, we do, we're just about starting kidney transplant, and so on and so forth. So fantastic things. And actually, a lot of Nigerians are coming back now. Truly, there has been some improvement in healthcare in the country in the last 5 years, to be frank with you. There are a lot of things that used to go abroad that are now being done here. For instance, in my own hospital, the aim is actually to stop medical tourism, and we are doing just that.
Dr. Awadad.
I look at medical tourism in a different light. It's to attract the world to Nigeria. It's a trade. More American citizens go abroad every year for treatment outside America. So the dream of stopping medical tourism is an illusion. People will always go for one reason or the other. But are we positioning ourselves for people to come in? We got it wrong in true tourism. And we would have been one of the true non-medical tourism destinations in this world if only we allowed the Yankaris and the Obudus of this world to be privately handled. So we have a chance to attract the world. Not only is our medical system, whether it's NISA or Garke hospitals, established in a way that it does some of the top-level surgeries that Dr. Tabo has referred to, but we are importers of patients now. We have an international desk. Nigerians abroad come to us. Non-Nigerians abroad are also coming to us. And ultimately, if this is encouraged, you will see Indians coming to Nigeria at some stage.
Is there any world world-class hospital so designated in Nigeria now that we can point to, okay, this is...
I think we got it wrong. It's not the building that is world-class. It's the processes. It's the functionality. So as far as we are concerned, people are coming from abroad, and quite a number of them are happy about it. We may not be 100%. So let's look at that as what medical tourism is about. Nigerians will always go out, but are people coming in?
All right, people coming in, that's one leg. Nigerians reduce their traffic outside, and then those who are inside get quality healthcare. But essentially, this is one point that some persons have also raised. How do you get to know what top-level, top-drawer professional services are available where? We know that according to your rules, Medical and Dental Council, you are forbidden from advertising. But we all know the role of advertising. We all know the role of information sharing. So other than what by word of mouth transmission, they say if you go to that hospital and the way they will treat you, or you go there, don't go there, you know, the way I'm not pointing at nothing. Don't go by word of mouth. So how then do you begin to get this information out there so that before somebody is conned, you know, into buying a ticket and flying out, you say, look, go somewhere there, the services you would get will be top rate. Let's just go from left to right.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. For instance, in our hospital, we've done over 100 joint replacement surgeries in the last 1 year. The people that call me are Nigerians abroad who have their parents here. They call me to say, look, I'm sending my mom to you because we have seen you on the internet. We have seen you, you know, people talk about what we do. Okay? So the law needs to change because in India, where we rush to, they advertise. And they come here to advertise. Okay. But we are not allowed to advertise. Even the beautiful things we do, we cannot talk about it. So legislation needs to change to protect us. It's gone at those days when they used to say it creates competition. The competition is needed now. We need to be aware of what's happening. And secondly, the National Health Bill, or the National Health Act that has been passed into law, stipulates that hospitals will be categorized and the directory will be available to everybody. If you want to know category A hospitals, these are the hospitals, and these are the personnel, these are their specialties. So the National Health Act needs to be operationalized for medical tourism to be curtailed.
Dr. Wada, your take.
Well, I want to salute the courage of our current Minister of Health. He's understood all of this. You can't go to a bank, borrow money at very high rates and hide it. You know, you can't talk about what you got the loan to do. So he's understood it, and I'm very, very happy about that. We are practicing Western medicine, but we are using the 1940 Act that was handed over to us. In England, you can advertise. In America, you can advertise. In Germany, you can openly talk about what we do, but we have not changed that aspect that was handed to us 50-something years ago.
60-something,
it needs to change. We need to go with the times. Please, that's my contribution.
Well, maybe my colleague really have to understand. The law all over the world, the person, the doctor doesn't have to advertise himself. That is the law. But hospital as a business can advertise what they do. And even now, it's ongoing. I'm a member of the committee of the Federal Ministry of Health. We are going to do what we call hospital exhibition to showcase to the whole world, to Nigerians, what activities hospitals and Nigerian doctors do, in which hospital you can find such activities, the equipment and facilities that are available is ongoing. There was one last year in combination with JB Daniels Consulting. So the Federal Ministry of Health is, and under the diaspora management, they are doing that currently. And by next month, it's going to take place in Lagos. So my Association of General Private Medical Practitioners in Nigeria is liaising with the Federal Ministry of Health to let the world know what the private sector, what they have in private sector. It is advertisement, but it is a law. No doctor will go out. We're not Babalawo and tell you I can treat gonorrhea, I can treat brain, I can no. But you can tell us as a business concern, a business person, this is what my hospital can do. It's the hospital that advertises itself, not the person in the hospital. We can do brain surgery. We can do this. We give you the compassionate care. When you come to my hospital, you are going to have a welcoming ambience, home away from home. That is the business aspect. But it would be wrong to say, I, Dr. Omohejile Franco Dafe, I'm the best spinal surgeon in Nigeria. No, that is crudity.
Understand?
And it's not acceptable.
Well, fine, but fine. That's the point you just raised now is crucial. At the same time, there are also legal responsibilities that go with advertising. Of course, if you make a claim that turns out to be false, by the time, of course, by the time you are through with the legal processes, perhaps that business goes under. Well, gentlemen, Claire,
just to add that, of course, he mentioned the.
But is it Claire? Sorry, Claire, I'm sorry. Do a number or most of your colleagues who are in the hospital business or even public hospitals recognize this? To say, look, go out there, say University of teaching hospital, this is what we are good at.
Yes, our members, we do what we call continuing professional development, and it's multifaceted. It's every aspect: medical administration and governance, and professional key skill acquisition and knowledge acquisition. All over the world, we do that. Even recently, we represented Nigeria in World Council of Family Physicians in Pretoria last week. I just came back on Friday. These are part of the issues and our members, and we market ourselves to the whole world.
Gentlemen, that's where we stop this program. And just to add again that because his name was mentioned, the Honorable Minister, we extended an invitation to him. Of course, he very much wanted to be part of this conversation, but for competing demands, he could not make it. Just to indicate that. And it's been a very interesting conversation, and we do hope that we could continue, of course. This is not, we can't exhaust it in one program. So on that note, Kingsley, we'd like to
appreciate our guest. First, beginning from the left there, Dr. Chris Otabo is Chief Medical Director of Alliance Hospital here in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory. Dr. Otabo, thanks for being with us on the program.
Thank you.
Also, thanks to Dr. Ibrahim Wada, Chairman, Desa Premier Hospital, also in Abuja, of course, is an ORG consultant and specialist. Thanks. All right. And then also Dr. Frank, you mentioned your middle name a moment ago, but I didn't speak. So that Dr. Frank Omoe Hijele Odafe is the president of the Association of General and Private Medical Practitioners of Nigeria. Dr. Odafe, thanks a lot for being our guest this morning.
Always a pleasure.
All right, so that does it for our discussion segment on Good Morning Nigeria. Let's go over now to sports, and we have stories, of course, on basketball as well as soccer. Victor Azu is our guide.
Good morning and welcome. Despite a 1-1 draw at home to Rivers United, Plateau United moved closer to being crowned MPFL champions as MFMFC fell 0-1 away to Abia Warriors in Umuahia to lose further grounds in the title race, with only 2 games to play.
The only goal of the game was scored by Arinze Nwango in the 67th minute, and while MFM remains second on 59 points, they are now 4 points adrift of Plateau United, who are on 63. At the Rank Palm Stadium, Jos, leaders Plateau United had to rely on a late goal to force a 1-1 draw against Rivers United. In the other results, Enyimba went goal crazy in Calabar as they hammered Wiki Tourists 4-0. Aqua United 2, Lobby Stars 1, Enugu Rangers 2, Remo Stars 1, Shooting Stars 1, El Kanemi Warriors 1,